trying to use a compass. I don't know if you know how those things work, but the needle of a compass always points towards north. So all you gotta do is turn the compass so that it lines up, and that way is north. But what makes the needle on the compass point towards north? Well, something called magnetism. And the earth is this giant magnet, and this needle is also a magnet. So it will line up with the earth's magnetic field. Pretty amazing, simple device. And there's a lot to this magnetism, probably more than you realize, just how important every day we use magnets. But that's something I'd like to explore as one of the secrets of science. So let's talk about what makes an object a magnet. For example, we have a piece of metal like these wire cutters, and we could take another metal, paper clips, and we try to pick up some of those. This is not a magnet, but you take something that's been magnetized, and obviously there's a big difference in how it responds. So what makes some objects magnetic? Here we have this board, and it's made up a bunch of tiny little compasses. They're each magnetized, and at the moment they're not all pointing the same direction. So this would represent something that's not magnetized, and these could represent the atoms and the way that they're arranged. If you get something that is a magnet, and here's another magnet, we get that close to these, then they all begin to point the same way. And since they're all pointing the same way, they have a lot stronger force that adds up. And that's essentially something that's magnetized. Each of the molecules, they call domains, or they could be atoms or molecules or particles, whatever you want to call them. When they're all lined up, pulling the same direction, that's really what makes something a magnet. So guess what? Objects can be magnetized. And if you take something like a nail, and you take a magnet, and you begin to brush that across the metal, you can get those domains, those particles, those atoms, to all line up the same way. And you can magnetize an object. To show that, we have this container with clear oil in it, and there's bits and pieces of iron in it, and they've been shaken up. And what I'm going to do is set up a time lapse for you, and we're going to put this magnetized nail inside here, and I want you to watch as these particles begin to line up, and you'll see this magnetic field that exists around magnets. Now what we've got here is a setup with some electricity that's going to go through these light bulbs, and I've got a compass here that we're going to see how the compass reacts to the electricity. So when I turn the electricity on and light up these light bulbs, we'll look for a change in the magnetic field. If you watch the needle of the compass here, when we switch the electricity on, it creates this magnetic field from the current of electrons, and the compass needle moves and lines up with that field. Switch the electricity off, it returns back to normal. So we see in that demonstration that electricity actually creates a magnetic field. But what if that could be reversed? What if magnets could create electricity? And what I have here next for you is what we call an amp meter. And amps is the actual movement of current of electrons. Okay, and you get a measure of that. This will be in milliamps. and I have connected to that wire, and it's been coiled or wrapped around just a plastic tube. And what I'm going to show you is that whenever we move this magnet near these wires, we're going to get this interaction between the electrons in the wire, and we can actually get them to push through this wire, and you'll see a change in the actual amps or current of electricity. The magnet is producing a burst of electricity. So this idea of magnets being able to move electrons, it completely revolutionized our world. Here we have a model. We have two magnets, and in between them, wire with lots of electrons. And the more wire you wrap up, the more electrons you get. And to generate electricity, you have to simply spin a generator in some way. Use water, use wind, use explosion from gasoline or coal, and use high pressure steam. And that's how we generate electricity. And it's all because of these magnets and being able to move electrons by pushing or pulling, and that connection between electricity and magnetism. It truly is one of the secrets of science. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, so until next time, we'll see you then.